Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, August 13th, 2012 meeting of the Lewis County Board of County Commissioners. We have a quorum present with all three members, and Commissioner Schulte will do the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Chair, I move to approve the minutes of 6 August 2012.
I second.
Motion is made and seconded to approve the minutes of August 6th. Any questions, comments, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We have no public comment this morning, so we'll move on to the agenda for the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the proclamation.
I'll second that.
The motion is made and seconded to approve a proclamation. Commissioner Averill, would you read that into the record, please?
I will. Before the Board of County Commissioners of Lewis County, Washington, a proclamation. Whereas the year 2012 marks the 103rd anniversary of the Southwest Washington Fair, and whereas the aims and purposes of the Southwest Washington Fair are to showcase Southwest Washington and its agricultural and industrial heritage and future, to display the accomplishments of our youth and members of our regional community, to encourage learning through participation, completion, and observation, and to inspire community pride and entertainment. And whereas the Southwest Washington Fair is proud to embrace all members of our community and beyond, regardless of race or station in life, and whereas the Southwest Washington Fair endeavors to bring people of all walks of life together to enjoy Lewis County, now therefore be it resolved, we, the Lewis County Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the 2012 Southwest Washington Fair as the 103rd anniversary of the Southwestern Washington Fair and the week of August 13 to 19, 2012 as Southwest Washington Fair Week in Lewis County. We encourage all citizens to embrace and participate in the fair activities and entertainment provided for their enjoyment. Done in open session this 13th day of August 2012. Board of County Commissioners, Lewis County, Washington.
Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on the proclamation? Seeing
Mike, Fair Commission and liking some of the activities that are coming up?
Yeah, we have several activities this year, sir. The fair actually starts tomorrow at 10 a.m., and I'd like to invite the public and the board to opening ceremonies tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the saloon stage. Wednesday, we have the Oak Ridge Boys in concert on the saloon stage. That is a quasi-free show. We have Golden Circle seats for $20, but also your fair admission will get you the bleacher seats. And Tuesday night, we have the Demolition Derby as usually, and again on Sunday. Friday, we have Weird Al in concert. Saturday night is Mark Lindsay, the oldies show in at Saloon Stage, and then Sunday is our traditional Christian day at the fair. So just like to invite all the public and the board to the fair. I think weather should be cooperating. I'm seeing 95 degrees this week, so I hope everybody can get in there.
It's the Little Miss Friendly coronation is also Tuesday following the opening, right?
It is part of the opening ceremonies this year. Normally we split the opening ceremonies, sir, and have the kickoff at noon with the elected officials of the local area and stuff. This year we combined it with the Fair Association, so the opening ceremonies will be at 6 p.m. Little Miss Friendly will be on the back side of that as part of it just before the ribbon cutting, so about 6:30 will be the actual contest in the announcements. And then we have entertainment, Just 'Cause after that, and Chris Gunther will be playing on the saloon stage after opening ceremonies.
Your comment? I'll call for the vote on the proclamation. All in favor of the proclamation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the notice agenda. One item, call for bids, resolution number 12258.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the notice agenda. which is a call for bids. Tim, would you like to comment?
You want to read it in the record first?
Pardon me, I was waiting for you to read it into the record.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Candace.
Item 2, call for bids in the matter of the proposed sale of timber on county-owned property on Highway 603 near Winlock, Washington. Bids will be opened on or after 11:30 a.m. on September 11, 2012. This is resolution number 12-258.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Elsey speaking to your item on your notice agenda. Lewis County owns a 2.61 acre tract on Highway 603 between Napavine and Winlock. The property is well stocked with harvestable timber. Resolution 12-085, passed by the Board of County Commissioners on March 12th, 2012, declared the property surplus to the needs of the county and for the property to be sold at public auction with a minimum bid of $54,900. No acceptable bids were received. The Public Works Department is now recommending to sell the timber only. The timber has been valued by a professional timber cruiser who reports a gross value of $52,344 for the timber only. Removing typical logging cost results in a net timber value of approximately $30,000. The bids for this will be open Tuesday, September the 11th at 11:30 a.m. with bids due no later than 11 a.m. on Tuesday the 11th.
Now, the bids are to the County Commissioner's office, and the opening is in this room on Tuesday.
That's correct.
Thank you. It's the one item in the notice agenda. Are there any other comments or questions on that item? Now we'll call for the vote. All in favor of the notice agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda, items 3 through 10, Resolution 12259 through 12266.
I second that.
Motion's made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Will the clerk please read those items into the record?
Item 3, resolution number 12-259, approval of warrants for payment. Item 4, resolution number 12-260, adoption of the Lewis County Terrorism Plan, Emergency Alert System Plan, and America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response Plan. Item 5, resolution number 12-261, election to receive secure rural schools and community self-determination funding and allocations of Title II and Title III funds. Item 6, resolution number 12-262, approving a grant agreement with the White Pass Scenic Byway. Item 7, resolution number 12-263, ratifying material purchase contracts for Ceres Hill Road Bank Protection Project. Item 8, resolution number 12-264, imposing a burn ban on outdoor burning on all lands regulated by Lewis County, except for fires contained in approved burning receptacles or campfire sites. Item 9, resolution number 12-265, approving Amendment B to the Housing and Essential Needs Grant with Washington State Department of Commerce. Item 10, resolution number 12-266, approving 2 awards as recommended by the CDMHTC Sales Tax Advisory Board.
Item 3, Resolution 12259, approves 228 warrants issued by the Auditor's Office totaling $1,008,173.89. Ross?
Good morning, Commissioners. Ross McDowell, Lewis County Sheriff's Office Division of Emergency Management, Deputy Director of the Division. I am going to be speaking to you about Resolution number 12-260. This resolution, what we've asked for is an adoption of the resolution for the Lewis County Counterterrorism Plan, the Emergency Alert System Plan, and also the AMBER, also known as the America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response Plan. These 3 plans are annexes to our Lewis County Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan, and I'd like to say just a little bit about each one of these plans to describe them and also the changes. The AMBER plan to start with, the purpose of the AMBER plan is to utilize the local and statewide radio systems as well as television and the Washington State Department of Transportation to assist police with and law enforcement in the recovery of an abducted child. There is a very strict criteria for this for this plan so that this stays a very serious and a very conscientious effort to bring abducted children back. Our plan changes that we did is we've put in the use of the My State USA. It's a communication system that allows us to input these Amber Alerts from laptops. It's a web-based system that as long as you have been certified and you have been trained and you've been approved to use the system, you're able to make these inputs a lot quicker. Before it used to be you have to sign it off, send it through about 5 different people, faxing it around, and then you would finally get that Amber out. Now Ambers are coming out as quick as 5 minutes after the notice has been given that it meets the criteria, which is nice. And as you've seen and probably heard and got on your cell phones, we've had 3 of them that have been locally for this area, not in our county. 1 was in our county and 2 were partner counties in our region, 1 in Mason County and 1 in Kelso that went out, Kelso Longview, that this system is being used, and it is actually a very good system. So our changes, besides using the web-based My State USA, we've changed the training accountability for each one of the agencies that will be using it, that they're giving a standardized training from my division to them to train their people and sign off that their people have been trained. So that we have documentation, because a couple of the Ambers that have gone out did not meet the criteria, and we want to make sure that they understand the criteria does have to be met and that we're very serious about that. We don't want people to see 2 dozen, 3 dozen Ambers coming out and then not pay attention to them anymore. We've also formalized and added a couple more forms to it, including a cancellation form. There was, once you turn something on, you have to turn it off. So we have a cancellation form that law enforcement will be using now, and then we also updated our debrief for afterwards when we do a critique after each activation. Lewis County has only had 1 activation of the Amber Alert system, excuse me, and that was with Chehalis PD last year, and it was a good activation. It met all the criteria, and the child was found rather quickly up in the Elm area. So it actually works out. Our second plan that we have is the EAS, which stands for Emergency Alert System. And this is a local area plan containing policies, procedures for emergency officials and local broadcasters to activate this EAS system and transmit emergency notification and information to the public during a local emergency. All local EAS activations are subject to the authority of our LAECC, which stands for the Local Area Emergency Communication Committee, which is built up about broadcasters, news media, elected officials, different county officials are on that group, that we look at it and make sure that what's going out does fit the criteria also for an EAS alert. And there's guidelines that are put into the plan itself. We have not had to use an EAS currently. The closest we did come was we did call NOAA to put one out for the 2007 flood. We got that to go out on the NOAA weather radio when we started doing some of the evacuations from the far west county in the Boisford and Doty area. And that was a semi-quasi EAS. It wasn't exactly a full-blown EAS that went out at that time. The changes that we did, we added, once again, the My State USA is all part of this system, the web-based, so it does make it a little bit quicker to get this out. And once again, you cut out a lot of the middlemen on this one and get it right into the system. We accepted some new, to accept the new formats that this comes out in, which is text and also voice messaging. The broadcasters here had to get new SAGE equipment, which is basically a box that allows them to receive the information, turn it from text to speech, and then put that back out onto the air. These SAGE systems were bought by the state emergency management, and all of our stations do have them. We did do a check with them to make sure that they did, because there is a $5,000 fine if you're caught without having one and being an EAS station. Ours are all good to go. We've also updated some of the other things that were minor housekeeping issues, like email addresses, and the EAS user list that are there, and some of the event codes that came out for EAS.
Ross, before you go on to the terrorism one, this EAS system, this is the one which we occasionally hear test of, that,
Yes.
you know, you get the buzz and
Yes.
there's a moment of silence and,
Yes.
and buzz again. But one of the things that jumped at me when I was reviewing the plan is the fact that our broadcasters do this totally on a voluntary basis. And as a result, if we abuse the system, we could actually do damage. And so we've done, we're pretty strong in this annex on authorization and procedures.
Right.
And
We've put in quite a few checks and balances to make sure that using these plans and using this system, that we do it the right way and we don't abuse it, because you're correct, it is a voluntary system. And our partnerships with our local radio stations, we don't have a local TV station, but with newsprint and everybody like that, we keep them really, really tight to us, that we can get this information out, and they know that if it's going to come out from our department or from E911, it's good, it's been watched, it's been looked over, and it does meet the criteria. I also have to give kudos out to 911, because they do our monthly testings for us, and they also do weekly testings, which nobody gets the weekly testings except me, and I believe Mike probably does, and Craig, on our cell phones. That keeps them going on, you know, the proper way to do this, because if you don't test it, it's one of those you don't use very often, but when you need it, it's a serious one. We get them working those, so I got to give kudos to them. They do our monthly testings for us that goes out to the stations. So, and I'm going to go on to counterterrorism response plan. The mission of this plan is to protect the people, property, environment and economy of our region from impacts of terrorist acts. A local plan of action consists of federal, state, and regional terrorism plans for response to terrorist incidents involving chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives, weapons of mass destruction, and conventional and unconventional weapons, conventional and unconventional. We've seen a lot more of the unconventional weapons coming out, people using things that you wouldn't think they would use to do terrorist acts. Some of the terrorist acts that we're thinking about are some of the things that have happened up in Seattle with the riots that have gone on, and using different chemicals that normally are not made for what they're using it for. We had the Oklahoma bombing, which was all natural chemicals that they used for that are easily purchased. So we do have a concern about that. The plan pertains to the first responders and the entities in Lewis County who must cooperate with the organization and unified way of response to this kind of an event. We do have jurisdictions that have got agreements that we will all work together in a partnership to not only respond, but also try to prevent an intel that comes in from anything to do with a terrorist act. The changes were mostly housekeeping changes, such as some of the acronyms change. As we all know from the state and federal, acronyms change mostly on a daily basis. And some of these were changed as of almost 2 weeks right before we sent this in. So we have the most current to date acronyms that we know of in this plan. We also updated some of the email addresses for people that were in there, and some of the vacancies were taken care of and put people in. So I'm requesting that you accept the resolution for these three plans that are annexes to our comprehensive emergency plan that was updated as of 2012.
Ross, you want to explain the NIMS ICS, because this resolution also is encouraging people to follow that system.
Right. We put the NIMS and ICS in almost every one of our resolutions. The NIMS is the National Information Management System. It's basically telling people, talk in language that people can understand, so that we're all on the same sheet of music. We've gotten rid of a lot of...
Is that a large government agency?
Pardon me?
Is that a large government agency?
That is a very large government agency. We're trying to get everybody to go back to plain English, where everybody can understand what you're talking about. And that's what's kind of interesting with all the acronym changes that come out of the federal government, because that's directly against NIMS. but it's their policy, and I don't know if they have to follow it, but we do, especially if we want funding. And all of our, any funding that's involved coming from federal government, you have to be NIMS compliant. And basically, it actually works out very well here. Somebody from the first responders can talk to each other on the radio because we just use plain English here. We don't use 10 codes. We don't use 5 codes. We don't do that. Same thing with Public Works. Public Works gets on the radio. They could talk to one of our guys, or we could talk to them, and we use just common terminology, which is a nice thing to have happen. ICS is a command system, incident command system. It basically makes it that you respond to one person. So you're not answering to 5 or 6 different uplinks. What you're doing is you answer to one, and that person answers to another person. So you know directly who you are being supervised by and who you are responsible for. And we have gone to ICS through our incident management system. In the EOC, the fire services have used ICS for years, and it makes it a lot easier on both the management, and it makes it a lot easier on the subordinates, knowing that they only have to answer to one person, and they have one supervisor instead of multiple supervisors, which during a time of an emergency could become a catastrophe in itself. It would be total chaos.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that under the sheriff and Ross's leadership, we in Lewis County probably have a better set of standard operating procedures and you know, our comprehensive emergency management plan, and most importantly, this plan really covers the entire county except for the city of Centralia, who has their own emergency management system. But even in that case, the city of Centralia has a liaison to us, and we coordinate those activities with the city of Centralia. If you want to know how large our first responders are, look at the list of people that sign on to this attachment. We're basically talking about our fire, our law enforcement, our emergency medical people, our public works, public health people, emergency communications, emergency management, and agencies involved in disaster preparation, prevention, response, and recovery. So it's a very, very large group.
Sure is. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Morning, Donna Truman, Budget Director. I'm here to talk about item number 5, Resolution 12-261. Congress reauthorized Secure Rural Schools and Community Self-Determination Program for 2012. The county must elect to either receive SRS funding or return 25% of actual receipts from the forest, with notification to the governor's office by September 7th of this year. The county must elect to allocate from 15 to 20% of the full county payment to Title II, which are RAC-approved projects, that's Resource Advisory Council, and Title III, specific county-approved projects, with no more than 7% allocated to Title III and with notification to the governor. In 2011, the county elected to allocate 11% of project funds for Title II and 4% to Title III projects. The county is electing to allocate 13% of project funds to Title II and 2% for Title III for projects in the federal fiscal year 2012.
I know that Lee can talk to this because he serves on the RAC. But this Secure Rural Schools funding, ever since Lee and I have come on to the Board of County Commissioners, has been operating on a year-to-year basis. In the start of each year, the indication is that Congress is not going to pass it on, and it has real serious implications to a lot of people in the state of Washington, because the Title I, which we really don't talk to, it provides, and the reason it's called Secure Rural Schools is it provides support to the school systems in the state of Washington that are impacted by the federal forest. It also provides a considerable amount of road funding to the counties in the Title I. But the Title II and the Title III are important to us as well. We have a program which we call the Discovery Program, from which students from our White Pass and Morton high schools participate in about a 4-week program during the summer, working within the forest and learning about the forest and environment and the responsibilities to make that system work. There's a lot of comradeship that is found with those young teens. Some of them will do 2 or 3 summers of work before they advance out of the program, and it's been very, very successful for us. This year may be the last year that we see secure rural schools. As we know, there's been pressure in Congress to find savings. It was originally intended that the federal government has a program called Payment in Lieu of Taxes that would go to counties and local jurisdictions that are impacted by government facilities, not just the forest, but if you've got a military installation or a federal building or any other federal group that does not pay into the tax base but impacts the community, that there would be funding that come back to those communities to help them to pay for the resources that they have to expend that the federal government benefits from. And quite frankly, at this point, I don't know where we go from here, but we have used these funds in our county to the benefit of the citizens, and they're very important to us, and we've tried to use them responsibly. But right now, what we're faced with is the possibility that this will come to a screeching halt, and then we have to look what resources that we're going to be able to return to fill the gap. Lee, I don't know if you had something you wanted to add in there.
Yeah, there are those in Congress who have considerable heartburn over giving money to rural counties in western United States and in the southern United States, but primarily in western United States for national forest land primarily. Back in the heyday when we were actually harvesting trees off the forest, we received about 25% of the revenue from the sales of those trees that went to the local jurisdictions. And with the demise, if you will, of the timber industry and the creation of the spotted owl, that money was basically lost. And so this secure rural schools legislation is designed to replace a portion of. It doesn't even come close to replacing the revenues that were generated by the logging activities that were on the national forest. Lewis County has some 380,000 acres of national forest, and that's a considerable piece of land that's taken out of the tax rolls because we can't charge property taxes to the federal government. The PILT funding, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes funding, is supposed to cover that. Well, the federal government has reneged on that promise too. They haven't funded that program. So the county is getting shortchanged all the way around, and as a result, the SRS funding is vital. I want to mention that there are 2 county commissioners who have been vital, very vital in securing this money. One of whom is not going to be on the Board of County Commissioners anymore, Paul Pearce from Skamania County and Bud Hover from Okanagan County have been very, very responsible for getting this legislation passed. Congress, fortunately, today is trying to work out some things that make our national forests more productive and hopefully make them pay for themselves, in which case the formula for us receiving funding may go back to the 25% basis. Hopefully that will happen. I believe that that's a much better way for us to receive funding instead of a give out, if you will. Over the years that SRS has been in effect, the federal government and the Forest Service has lost a substantial amount of money because they're spending a lot more on forests than they are receiving from the forest. And so that's what raised the red flag for some of our congressmen. And he said, this is ridiculous. We've got resources out there, let's use them and provide some money instead of giving the money out of the general fund and the general budget. Hopefully they'll get it done. This amounts to about right around $1 million for the schools. Lewis County receives the second largest amount of money in the state of Washington from this Secure Schools money. Represents about $1 million to the schools and roughly same amount to our roads and local programs. Thank you, Donna.
Okay. Speaking to item number 6, Resolution 12-262, the White Path Scenic Byway has applied for funds to conduct the wayfinding signage project, which is necessary in order to accomplish local tourism retention and expansion. The application has been recommended for approval by the Distressed Counties Rural Economic Development Public Facilities Advisory Committee for grant funding in the amount of $20,000. It is in the best interest of the citizens of Lewis County that these funds be authorized in order to allow completion of this project to support employment, growth, and provide for important job retention.
This particular funding is, it was originally passed about, I think, 2 years ago, and it was actually a match, so that the full amount was about $100,000 for this program. Our match was about $20,000, and we've had some questions about who we could provide the money to. We've resolved those, and now we're finally closing the loop.
That's correct.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Elsey, Lewis County Public Works Director, speaking to item number 7, Resolution 12-263. The bridge approach on Ceres Hill Road near Adna is severely scoured by the Chehalis River, and bank stabilization is required to prevent future road damage. Lewis County Public Works acquired all access permits and environmental permits to begin emergency repair to existing riprap within the adjacent existing right-of-way. Additionally, 3 new rock barbs to train the river will be installed to further prevent outflanking of the riprap along the upstream right bank of the Ceres Hill bridge approach. Due to the emergent nature of the Ceres Hill Bank Protection Project and narrow in-water work window associated, Public Works requested 3 material supply bids through our established small works roster. All companies from the environmental protection category were emailed an invitation on July 3rd of 2012 to supply 350 linear feet of turbidity curtain and 220 linear feet of aqua barrier. These were separate bids. The bids were due by 2 p.m. July 10th, 2012. The turbidity curtain and aqua barrier bids were opened at 2 p.m. at 2025 Northeast Kresge with the following results. Climacover, on the 350 feet of turbidity curtain, Climacover presented a bid of $5,687.50, and Layfield Environmental submitted a bid of $6,916. For the 220 foot of aqua barrier, Climacover submitted a bid of $23,650, and Layfield Environmental submitted a bid of $29,425. Similarly, all companies from the small works roster rock crushing category were emailed an invitation on July 6, 2012 to supply 5,000 tons of riprap, 500 tons of filler material, and 200 tons of quarry spalls with delivery at Lewis County's option, with bids due by 11 a.m. to the BOCC office on July 17, 2012. The rock material supply bids were opened and with the following results. Northwest Rock provided a bid amount of $112,100 before tax, and Winston Quarry provided a bid of $139,115.90. The Ceres Hill Bank Protection Project is designated as CRP 2159C under the countywide Bridge Road Bank Protection, Project Number 4 in Lewis County's 2012 to 2017 6-year Transportation Improvement Program, which was adopted on November 14, 2011. Additionally, Resolution 11437 allows appointed directors to execute and bind Lewis County to sign agreements up to $150,000 if the project has already been authorized in the department's budget. In order to meet the tight deadlines, Public Works executed contracts with the respective low-bid companies for items needed and would like the county commissioners to ratify Climacover Incorporated and Northwest Rock Incorporated purchases with the proposed resolution.
Yeah, I want to point out that this is a ratification, that these have already been approved by the Director of Public Works. And the reason that the county commissioners have given this authority to the director is that sometimes we have projects where we got fairly narrow window to get them done because of both fish and wildlife and ecology requirements about working in water ways during what we call a fish window that's there. And so, and in this particular case, we've had an increasing threat which has alarmed the citizens in the West County that use this road on a regular basis, and they've been putting a lot of pressure on the county commissioners to do something about it. And so this project, which has been advertised in both the Chronicle and on our radio media here, although they've gotten some of the details a little bit wrong, is in progress, and hopefully we'll be able, through this project, to provide the protection to that very important bridge. I know that Bill has been concerned about that.
This bridge is at risk because of the channel migration at that point on the river. But we either spend a couple $100,000 now or millions of dollars to replace the bridge and the road later. So it makes sense to do that now. How's that project going, and when do you think it'll be done?
We should be done before the end of the work window, which is the middle of September. And hopefully it'll be a couple of weeks. We've got one barb in right now, and most of the riprap has been completed. And this is an alarming project for many reasons, but first of all, it's that just high water is the biggest detriment to the bank on this, not flooding. So we don't have to have a flood year for this to wash out the roadway.
I would just like to say that Public Works Department has done an outstanding job of bringing some contentious issues to bear and resolving those contentious issues in this process. We were told at the beginning of this process that there was no way that this was going to get done this year, largely at our insistence and at the diligence of Tim and the Public Works Department. They were able to get the various state agencies, federal agencies involved and engaged in this process, realizing the seriousness of it, and we're able to get this project on its road, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Johnson, Director of Community Development, speaking to item number 8, resolution number 12-264. This is ratification and imposing of a burn ban on outdoor burning on all lands regulated by Lewis County, except in UL-approved fire pits and approved campfire sites. The Department of Natural Resources and the county both have statutory authority for imposition of burning restrictions for safety and health reasons. The Lewis County Fire Marshal acts on the behalf of the county in that regard. In the past, the Department of Natural Resources and the county worked collaboratively on imposition of burning restrictions in the county based on a scientific method, that being the moisture content of heavy fuels, typically big logs and debris in the forest, and on weather conditions in the weather forecast. About 2 years ago, the Department of Natural Resources started imposing burn ban chronologically. They started July 1st and end sometime in September, regardless of what the heavy moisture content is or the extended forecast for weather. Lewis County, on the other hand, has maintained that the imposition of burning restrictions should be based on scientific fact, and we have, in fact, continued to monitor the heavy fuels in the forests, and it looks like, based on the weather forecast and the rather low moisture content, that the appropriate time for imposition of a burn ban is now. The fire marshal, in fact, imposed a burn ban as of 12:01 today. That would be on all land regulated by Lewis County, and with those two exceptions of campfires in certified areas and for certified UL-approved burning receptacles.
I think that there's an important distinction that we've made here, and actually we provided an announcement to the media that we were going to do this last week, and I noticed on John Panesco's show on Friday that one of the people that called in thanked the Lewis County Commissioners for using reason for doing burn restrictions rather than trying to tie it to some artificial date that won't happen. And I just point out that when DNR this year decided that they would start a burn ban on the 1st of July, that we then subsequently had two weeks of rain, heavy rain. And you know, it just doesn't make any sense. And plus the fact that because of the storm that we had last winter, we still have a lot of people in the county that had a lot of woody debris that they needed to dispose of, and so cutting off the burn ban on the or imposing a burn ban on the 1st of July just didn't make any sense to us. But we are now in a period. I would also point out that starting it back up on the last day of September in a weather cycle, which may be dry and hot all the way into mid-October, doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah, and in fact, the burn ban that you're imposing and have imposed today will remain in effect until such time as the weather patterns and the heavy fuel content, the moisture content are above 20%. So again, it's not going to be an arbitrary designated time. It'll be based on scientific fact. And
Clarification. The burn ban will remain in effect until we lift it.
exactly.
That's right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Danette York, Director of Public Health and Social Services. I'm speaking on items number 9 and 10. Number 9, resolution number 12-265. This is an amendment to a contract between Department of Commerce and Lewis County. This contract provides funds for Lewis County agencies that provide services to homeless persons and those at risk of becoming homeless. Services include rental assistance, utility assistance, and essential needs. The contract is for a period of September 15, 2011 through June 30th of 2013. This amendment adds $51,508 to the entire contract period, bringing the total to $881,544. This amendment of $51,000 was anticipated, so the funding in the amount of $376,260 was already budgeted for the 2012 calendar year for Lewis County.
This particular funding here kind of highlights some of the difficulties that county officials have in trying to follow the thinking of both the state and the legislature in providing necessary funding that we need to provide to our citizens. One of the reasons that we're doing this is last year's legislature ended a program which they called Lifeline?
Disability Lifeline.
Disability Lifeline, which is basically a health funding thing. But housing has been in commerce for quite some time. It looked like the state at one point last year wanted to get commerce out of the housing business altogether and turn it to primarily to trade.
Right.
And we thought that that commerce was going to be out, but we're now, as we wade through the cycle, trying to distribute the funding between the two groups, and this is now called the Housing and Essential Needs Grant. It's still through the Department of Commerce. We may see something different next year with the new legislature, right. But what we've had to do is kind of move money around from one account to another so that we could provide the services that are needed.
Yes. Item number 10, resolution number 12-266. This is awarding 2 awards as recommended by the Chemical Dependency Mental Health and Therapeutic Courts Sales Tax Advisory Board. So back in June of 2011, the Board of County Commissioners voted to pass the sales and use tax of 0.1% to be used for chemical dependency treatment, mental health treatment, and therapeutic court programs and services. In August of 2011, the Board of County Commissioners established a sales tax advisory board whose purpose is to approve, advise, and make recommendations to the commissioners on how to allocate the funds. In January of 2012, the Sales Tax Advisory Board released a request for proposal seeking proposals to provide services for adults identified as high utilizers of the law and justice system and other county resources. The total funds available through this particular RFP process was $150,000. The advisory board received 4 proposals. In addition to reviewing the written proposals, the advisory board had a subcommittee who heard oral presentations from all applicants. After careful consideration, the advisory board recommends that the Board of County Commissioners award funds in the amount of $85,000 to the Lewis County Shelter Program and $65,000 to Reliable Enterprises, which brings the total to $150,000. Both of these applicants will be providing case management and some housing services to those identified as high utilizers.
I have some reservations with this. I understand and agree with the Lewis County Shelter Program funding. The rest of the packages all had what I would say flaws in them, so I was concerned about the other programs. And up to this point, I have refrained from voting for either one of these, for any of the others supporting their programs. I will vote for them today, but I just want to make it known, and we've talked about it before, is that if they are not productive, we don't see results, the contracts will not be renewed. So this is results oriented.
Yes.
And if there's no results, we will try a different approach to solve this problem.
Yes, if the Board of County Commissioners accept this recommendation, Public Health Department staff members will be working with the 2 contractees to develop the contracts, scopes of work, and evaluation programs that will show outcomes.
We wanted to make sure we could get a measurable, observable improvement out of these programs.
Absolutely.
I totally concur with what Commissioner Schulte has said. You may wonder why we chose 2 different programs to do essentially the same thing. And when you read the record, you will see that they're slightly different. The Lewis County Shelter Program is a fairly short-term program. They take folks in for about 90 days, and they can handle a larger number than we'll see that the Reliable program has. But it is fairly short-term, and at the end of that 90 days, then some other type of resources may be needed if an individual is not back in. Our original intent it was the fact, and we've had a large number of members in the community that have been working on how do we slow down this, what we call high utilizer group that have mental health problems and end up in the jail over and over and over again. Sometimes we've had incidents where we have had a client that was released from the jail, immediately went outside and picked up stones and started throwing them at the window to get back in. And those that are in, if you want some harrowing experiences, talk to our facilities people that have to go over and clean up after some of these residents go on a tirade within the jail, throwing their own feces at jailers, writing on a wall with their feces, and all kinds of other things that we have to do. It just doesn't make any sense to handle these people in the jail environment. We need something else. And as we sat down, and I want to tell you that Judge Lawler has been in the middle of this, along with our health department. And Carolyn Price has been working with the Mental Health Coalition to find solutions to help. And one of the reasons that we as county commissioners approve this tax basis, which it's not large on our citizens. The average citizen probably will pay $20 to $25 a year toward this tax out of sales that occur in the county. But it was the fact that there are not programs out there that address this problem, and we needed local funds in order to do it. And so we now have got the first of the programs, other than the therapeutic courts, that is going to be receiving money to help resolve a problem which is incident to Lewis County itself, and that's the reason that we've got the funds out there. The Reliable program is a little bit more long-term, but it has limited resources in how it can help. We, through other funding sources, helped Reliable get a housing project here in the Centralia area, which we call Magnolia House. It has, I believe, 8 units in it, and 5 of those are going to be dedicated to the high utilizer group. And in that particular program, they have a case management capability for up to 9 months. So it is a little bit longer term, and hopefully we think intuitively that if we can get these people out of the jail, get them onto their medications, get them stabilized, and then perhaps find them employment, that they'll quit this cycle, and that will take a huge pressure off the jail system. And the reason that we want to do this, I've been totally in support of this. I sit on the mental health groups that we have in the county. I've got a great interest in providing adequate support in this area. It is an area which traditionally does not receive good support from the government. But my only area that I am concerned about on this is just a small step, and it doesn't, in my estimation, is not going to touch the total population that we have to be concerned about. So, my charge to the advisory board is that we need to continue to look at other programs, because we've still got more money left out there, right, to dedicate to other programs, and we need to look at other programs that will do it. And secondly, one of my concerns is that this is a group which is not pleasant to work with, and there may be a sort of reticence to deal with the hardest part of the population, but it's the hardest part of the population which is our real problem. And so, I would charge the folks that are running this particular program to recognize that it is that hard population that we want addressed. And if this program doesn't do it, then we need to look at some other programs that will.
Yes, and the second RFP process will be moving out here very shortly. We hope to have it out by September.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, with no further business, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. We are adjourned.